wasn't us leading these people along. It was the Mustang themselves, what both of them described as mirroring of their souls and doing away with those fears. Once they could be in that round pen with the Mustang, they got more comfortable with themselves.
There are healers on this planet with the power to soften the suffering of mankind, yet they have remained in the recesses of the world, abused, discarded, and labeled as trash. This is The Touch of a Mustang. I am your host, Shalise Clough, and I'm here to tell the story of wild horses, Mustangs, and the humans who are discovering and sharing their gifts while working to protect their well-being and preserve their spirit, so this divine power won't be lost. Join us on this quest with the Wild Mustang. Maybe we can just start with you guys introducing yourselves and telling a little bit about your organization, and also, if you guys want to, just how you've gotten involved with horses and Mustangs and are now working in this program.
Okay, I'm Katie Barnes, and I grew up on just a small hobby farm, just kind of always having horses, 4-H, rodeo, kind of the like, and domesticated horses mostly, right? And I actually grew up in Minnesota, so I really didn't have a whole lot of exposure to Mustangs, maybe at like their horse expo, until I moved out west and realized that there still are Mustangs, and not only are there still Mustangs, but it's kind of actually an issue here where they're overpopulated in some of our western states. And so we started a horse expo actually in Idaho, in eastern Idaho. It's called the Teton Horse Experience. And so the Mustang Recovery Challenge was kind of a spin-off of that, just as an event to have at our expo.
Mm-hmm.
And how
you guys started the whole expo, the Teton Horse Experience. Very cool.
Yes.
I was just looking at it and reading about it.
Yeah, that would also be with like Darcy and Bob Perry. Those are our two partners in that. And yes, they good friends of ours. And then it's just like one of those conversations that happens like out of nowhere. They're like, so we want to pitch something to you. What if we just did our own event instead of going to all these things? And
yeah,
it just kind of shocked us.
Yeah.
But it's been exciting since, and just to see the momentum rolling from then and our friendship just growing bigger and bigger, sharing like all the responsibilities together. It's been cool.
That's really neat. That seems like a huge undertaking to start a little expo.
It is. Little.
Yeah.
Yeah. We thought it'd be little. And
little now big
expo.
Yeah, it looked great from the information I saw.
Yeah.
So I'm James, the other half of Katie here. And so I grew up in Washington State, and my grandparents had a ranch here in southeast Idaho. So I kind of spent like my summer breaks, my winter breaks, any school breaks out doing the cattle operations. We kind of laugh and joke, like the mix was like she grew up doing the rodeos and the horse shows. I grew up doing the ranching and had no idea about horse shows. I thought I could ride a horse until I met her and realized I was just staying on. But then when we got together, she really, as I got more and more interested in the whole horse industry as a whole, not just, hey, it's a tool for a job to get done, we kind of got into training and have kind of developed our own little programs and support group here in southeast Idaho in the training operation. And that's how we were introduced to like Bob and Darcy, is when you get together and you put like-minded people together to say, hey, we are trying to figure out how to build the best relationships with horses. It kind of stemmed from there. And then when we started the expo, I think it was maybe our second meeting where I kind of gave her the test there and said, hey, what if we want to train Mustangs as part of this?
So had you guys done anything with Mustangs before then?
We had one come through our program.
Okay.
At this point, up to that point, we had one Mustang.
Through the training program.
Yeah, we had some friends of ours that said, hey, we got this Mustang, would you try it out? And we ended up with that horse because after the training and through the process of training, he was partial blind in one eye. So they offered him to us, but he turned out to be a heck of a horse for us, and he'd pack anything. And once we knew like where the issue was in his eye, he became easier just to get along with as you kind of catered to that.
Yeah.
I believe, I won't speak for her, but we have that kind of thought, like the horses aren't always going to be perfect. But once you accept that and you learn to work with whatever they need, right? You find the horse, then you find a way to care for them. You don't find the horses that's the easiest to care for. It just won't work. So yeah, at that point we'd had the one Mustang. So I flew it by her. I said, "Hey, what if we did this?" And part of that was I don't maybe you know his name, Wes Taylor out of Utah.
Yeah, he actually was on the podcast. Awesome.
Yeah. So Wes Taylor, I connected with his videos, and then we started chatting. And then when we mentioned that at one point to Darcy, she was all over it. She had paid into his program and everything else. And he
Mm-hmm.
was one of our main clinicians at our inaugural expo. So we knew we were going to be working with Wes, and we knew he's really into the Mustang things. So when I told her, what about she kind of shut me down. She's like, I don't know. They might think we're
She
crazy.
was sane for a minute. Not
Yeah.
too long though, apparently.
So I did it anyways. I brought it up with Bob and Darcy, and they fell in love with the idea because again they'd worked closer with Wes than I ever had, and they said we could do that. So from there it became the Teton Horse Experience. Then we decided with the Mustang Recovery Challenge, due to the population we were going to invite into our challenge.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's just been a roller coaster and broken ribs since.
Oh no, that doesn't sound good.
It wasn't good, but it's been exciting and a learning curve, and everybody's
Yeah.
still motivated, and we've gained more support because we're able to say, hey, we're still learning at this. We're not
Yeah.
the experts.
Yeah.
Well, and that's awesome to be able to do because a lot of people think you have to know everything to start something. And especially with Mustangs, I feel like you got to go in and be willing to learn the whole way because you're going to think you know everything and something's going to pop up that's just going to totally take you back and have to reevaluate things.
Yeah.
Yeah, but with his idea, it was so we work as drug and alcohol counselors, and then I'm actually a clinical supervisor in an area just south of where we live, where we oversee people that are just kind of starting over with their life, right? They
Yeah.
have given up their addiction, they're trying to change their life. It's really, really difficult for them. They're really kind of searching for who they are a lot of times. And I don't know how he thought up the idea, but he was like, let's just take these people that don't really know anything about horses or training them
Yeah.
and have them help me train these Mustangs. And I'm like, and
Yeah.
so that's what we did. And it was very crazy, but also very exciting. And the participants that, were in our program completely, we were able to watch their completely change and their lives completely change from where they were to what they are now. So that was
Mhm.
really rewarding.
So, give us a quick overview of the Mustang Recovery Challenge. And I guess, how long have you guys been doing the Horse Expo, the Teton Horse
2 years.
Experience? How long? Sorry.
2 years.
2 years. Okay, so you guys are pretty new.
Yes, and this will be our second year with the Mustang Recovery Challenge.
So this started right at the beginning.
Yes, yeah, we married the two right away.
And yeah, give a quick overview about your program, and then I have all kinds of questions. I absolutely love just the meshing of Mustangs and helping people because I think it is so incredible.
Well,
Mhm.
and the symbolism there for us like clicked right away. Like seeing these horses that some would just disregard, or they're
Yeah.
going to be more of a challenge, they're going to be more of a struggle. Like that's our daily life with the population we work with and the people we work with, and they kind of the stigmas that hang around. And then to see the total transformation, where like one of our gentlemen never worked with horses before, and now he can't get out of it. Like he's being offered jobs as a horse trainer. He's out at
Yeah.
bars, just like volunteering. He's just like, how many times can I get in the saddle? And he's been
Yeah.
running with open arms into the horse world just because his passion right there. That in other areas where his passion was taking him other ways, it meant nothing to him or anyone else. It's really cool.
Yeah. So before you guys started, did you have some idea that horses would really just help these individuals, or was it just, it seems like it could be fun?
Yeah. So just kind of knowing that, like coming from that background with the horses, I feel like they've always helped me in particular. And then as we went on in our careers, in mental health, I think our goal was always to do some sort of equine therapy of sorts.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, training a Mustang was a huge undertaking, but it was really the best version of that because it wasn't really us leading these people along. It was the Mustang themselves, kind of what both of them described as like mirroring of their souls and kind of doing away with those fears. Once they could kind of, be in that round pen with the Mustang, they got more comfortable with themselves. I'd like to just really quick go into what our explanation is. So The Mustang Recovery Challenge is a 501c3 nonprofit, and it kind of pairs the untamed spirit of the Mustang and the resilience of individuals in addiction recovery. So the person has to have been clean for at least a year. They have to have gone through a previous program for addiction. And then this year, we would like to open it up to, well, we're in the process of trying to open it up to veterans as well. One of the previous participants was a veteran. Looking forward to opening up to veterans. And then we've had a couple of youth actually come in and help us with the challenge as well, just kind of being there in helping with the training of the horses and being assistants. But yeah, so James is a veteran and also a drug and alcohol counselor, and I'm a licensed clinical professional counselor.
Yeah, I know there's so many different titles in that.
Yep. So anyways, it's a program where you pair the Mustang with the person in addiction, and kind of the end result is to really save the person and save the Mustang, right?
Yeah.
You know, they come out on the end of this really feeling like they're worthy of something, like they have a new chance at life. You know, the people have learned these invaluable skills where they've actually learned a trade. They've learned how to train horses, which in our area where we live in the country, that's a pretty sought after trade.
Okay.
Yeah, and then the horses themselves, you know, can go on and, you know, be paired with another person as a riding horse, as a pack horse, whatever they end up doing. They now have a job as well.
Yeah, so I like the way Katie put that as far as the equine assisted psychotherapies. The theories have been out there for a long time, and they're really hard to navigate. And of course, in any therapeutic model, like, it's not a one size fit all. So we knew we didn't have to lock into anything to be able to be helpful. And the way she worded it was just right. It almost became to where, like, hey, let's just step out and be support, but give these guys like when you're training a horse, right? Sometimes like riding with purpose, right? Having a task to do or a job to do is way easier than focusing on, hey, what's my body position? What's this? Sometimes having a purpose. So we gave them the purpose where they get the horses in March, and we bring them to the expo. We kind of introduce them to the public, and that's where Wes Taylor came in last year, and he introduced our Mustangs to the public, and the public to what our participants were going to be taking on in this challenge. And then we gave them till July to work with these horses, and it was just no finite goal, but it's like, make it as far as you can. And then we started working together, and that challenge turned into survive as long as you can for a minute, back to, hey, we're really making it somewhere. And then we started supporting each other. So when we initially started, we had 3 teams of 2 people and 3 Mustangs. Well, it just became a team of everyone helping everyone to help the horses. One horse started to make it really far, and everybody said, wow, he's going to have a good life. And when they realized that, hey, well, that's what we're here for. We're not training this horse to make money. We're here to make sure this horse has the best possible chance of having a good life.
Yeah.
How do we keep him out of the kill pins? How do we keep people from running him into the ground? How do we make it so he's happy, easy to communicate, easy to get along with? And that was cool for even us to see as experienced horse trainers, to see these guys pick that up in their very first time training a horse. So really cool. They went from March to July, and then at the end of it, when everyone was just happy with, hey, this is how far we made it, we did our best, it comes to that point where it's like, okay, we auctioned off the horses, we sold the horses privately, and then we split the money with our participants, and then we gave some back to the program to go again for another year. Along with that, we got commitments. We didn't even ask for them, but all of our previous participants that made it to the end of the program have already committed to coming back this year. And they're on us more than we're on ourselves about it. Hey, when are we getting the Mustangs?
Yeah, it's good. They're keeping you on top of things.
Yes.
But as a mentor, not as a person.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so the people who completed it come back, and now they're going to help the next round of participants. That's really cool.
One of them, I can't use her name, sorry, but she's actually really well known in the recovery community in Southeast Idaho too, as a recovery coach. So she works for an agency where she gets to meet with clients kind of where they're at in their recovery and kind of just help and support. Same role we ended up taking in this Mustang challenge is like, here, we're not here to direct you. We're just here to support as you learn. She does that in the recovery world. So for her to want to come back as a mentor is just so much more valuable to us. It adds to our team as clinicians in the same way that they were adding to us as mentors for the horse training.
And so these horses, you bring them in untouched, you pair them with someone. Is this a program people apply to, or how do you find the participants?
Yes, so we opened it up to applications last
Mm-hmm.
year, and we're I would say shocked when within the first couple of weeks we were like over 30 applicants. We're like, oh no, now
Wow.
who's got to tell people no?
Yeah.
Like at first we were gonna do one person per horse, but then we thought, okay, we're not good at being the bad guy. We might have to do teams of two, so it's just less no's to pass around. So yeah, it was a lot of people from different agencies. As we reached out to the recovery world and the substance abuse treatment world in Southeast Idaho, their participants were applying. Some of the participants that have been through programs that we've worked in were applying. Some people that were doing their own private recovery were even applying.
Mm.
And we at that point got our board together to screen the applicants, and then we just went through a process of okay, who was best suited, and we had to put things in there like transportation issues. We did have to say no to some people that were coming in gung-ho like, oh, I've been training horses my whole life, and it's like, then this challenge, sorry, it really isn't for you. But we did also extend them the invite, like, you can come out and you can help us, right? And there's more support than just the training sessions. Like, what about feeding, right? And
Yeah.
things like that. Can you help us in any other way?
Mm-hmm.
Well, their experience was very valuable in those areas. And we did see a lot of that come from both sides. The horse world, I mean, we had some world-class horse professionals say, here's the login to my online information. Don't worry about the fee. I want to help in any way I can.
Nice.
We had Wes Taylor. He actually came to our backyard and worked in our round pen with us. Cliff
Shot.
Yeah, Cliff
Junior.
Shot, all the way from Florida.
Wow.
He came up, and he's actually coming back this year for one of our participants' graduation from their substance program.
Very neat.
Yeah, so some really cool people. Greg Robinson lended us quite a hand. He was very supportive. And then a lot
Dana
of local.
Lavelle.
Yeah, Dana Lavelle's one of our local from Twin Falls who does some work with Mustangs.
Sherry Skur.
Yeah, all these horse professionals, but then the recovery community, they were throwing barbecues to raise funds and things.
Wow, yeah, that's
both
awesome.
the worlds come together and just meet right there in the middle was just awesome.
Yeah, it sounds like you've created a really incredible community that clearly there appears to be a significant need for this service, this experience.
Yeah, just the excitement around both the Mustangs and the recovery was really fun.
Yeah, and so coming from the mental health world and more traditional therapy and counseling, what are some of the things you guys have seen that happens when you pair people with the horses that is maybe more difficult or you just don't get in the traditional mental health world?
Do you mean as far as the participants' reactions or what they're learning? Or
yeah, how does it affect the participants differently? What does it maybe provide for them that is unique?
So very variable. I mean, it really depends. What I would say, as far as like adventure-based counseling style or theory, it's a lot in the metaphors, and the people that I see hit a breakthrough like right away, right? The first time they're in the barn is usually people that haven't been around such an intimidating animal. And then when they get in there, it's like it's really hard to have the same kind of defenses. Like, it's not a lot of people go into therapy saying, I want to be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And that's a challenge as a therapist, because it's like, well, that's where your growth.
That's exactly what we have to do. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, I mean, without being uncomfortable, like, I don't know what we're addressing here. So when you bring in something like a horse, and I mean, if you've never been around horses, it gets pretty uncomfortable pretty fast. Like, all of a sudden the emotions just start pouring, right? The defenses come down, and then when you can throw in there like, hey, did you see how they responded to you move, to your choking for air, like, and you see their reaction, like, all of a sudden you just, I mean, everything just boils to the surface. That's probably been one of my most like wow things, is when somebody walks in and you can see they weren't ready to be uncomfortable. And they like the idea, like, sure, I'll go in there with a horse. That sounds fun. And then you just see them fall apart and just bring down all their defenses. And then you just go right into therapy. The horse was just there as the catalyst and the help and assistance. And it's fun.
I think as far as what I learned or what I experienced, what I witnessed, I guess, is, the name of your podcast here is The Touch of a Mustang. And so I think first off, that was one of the really empowering pieces that we noticed right away was one of our participants. I mean, he was like right there in the beginning and helping us to get these Mustangs halter broke. Like, they were wild. And I think he got to have that first touch with one of them. And I would say that emotion, like, he got really emotional.
He froze. There's minutes where he was just frozen in the round pen, and we're like, are you okay? And the horse even kind of like walked around. And then when he finally turned to us, you could just see he'd been bawling the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
So powerful.
So I think that represents trust, right?
Yeah.
He got that first touch that represented trust with him, something that he hadn't experienced a lot of with humans in his life, trust, right? And then the second part was when we would round pen them, and the way that we actually taught them to lead wouldn't be like, I mean, these were like full grown horses. And so you can't like drag them around like people training like the domestic weanling to.
Right. Yeah.
So that second piece came when, James had taught them how to join up with these Mustangs, and then he was like, turn around and walk away. And the Mustang had learned to follow him. And one of the participants was in the indoor arena and had the Mustang just following him all over the place, turning, just really, he would turn and so that to me represented connection.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing that he had missed with humans.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then the third thing was at the very end of the program is I kind of set it up like they knew that these horses were going to be for sale. I had taken some pictures, we had taken sale photos, all of this stuff, and I said, hey, when we list these horses, I just want you to be aware, like, this is it, and so we kind of prepped them for that, and then I gave them each, like, I said, hey, why don't you go in there and just have like your last session kind of a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And no equipment, nothing. They just went in there and they had just spent time with them. And he went in there and he was spending time with him. And I just kind of like hid, not like hid, but I was on the outside of the corral, like they knew it.
Snooping. No.
Yeah. But like the sun was going down and I just with my iPhone was just taking some pictures of him. And I, showed him that picture where he went up to the horse and the horse kind of like wrapped its neck around him like a hug kind of. And and I showed that to him and he mentioned to me, he said, I've never had a healthy goodbye before. So thank you for allowing me to do that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So those are the three things.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting. The different things the ways I guess they've been able to see the possibilities almost, because it's still not a human relationship, but just the idea that it's possible, it sounds like, can almost give hope moving forward. Because you said that everybody who does it is a year in recovery, but it's a long process. I would think recovery is just the very tip of the iceberg, where it's like, okay, we're not going to do this very damaging, toxic behaviors anymore. And that's such a long road to, getting to a healthy place still when you're coming from that.
Yeah, a lot of our program here for the state is we base it on relationships, right? Staying sober is this much to the process of recovery, where when you can learn how to just like feel a sense of community and belonging and really connect with people and understand that, some connections are a little abrasive, but, how to navigate those tasks. Recovery becomes just a whole life-changing thing. It's not turning off the faucet. You're not just not drinking or not smoking. It's a whole different thing is what recovery becomes. And I think for these guys to see that, like, just the communication styles that a horse has. I mean, not to get like technical about it. I know West is really good at that. The science-based horse, that changed me because I kind of geek out on stuff like that.
Yeah.
I'll just say like the amygdala, right? We're giving off these vibes, and a human can get in the way of those. Like, you feel good about somebody, but then they tell you something, you're like, why would you say that? Like, this doesn't match the vibe I was getting from you, or vice versa. You kind of feel
our communication's incredibly poor for having words to speak to each other when you compare it to kind of the silent communication that you're forced to do.
So like working with West and looking at some other things and just some other biology, like the horse's amygdala, where they're transmitting these vibes, is so much larger, and they don't have the words to mix it up.
Mm-hmm.
Learn to really pay attention to those vibes, and then just trust yourself to question, like, hey, you're telling me to go away, but I wonder if what you're really saying is scared, right? I believe you're scared. Not that you're mean, not that you want to get me, but the vibe I'm getting is that you're worried, and so am I, right?
Yeah.
But being able to trust that and not have any words to mess it up.
Yeah, to change that perspective that you might have judged otherwise. And so is this something that for the people that participate in the program, they'll always have the option to stay involved in the Mustang Recovery Challenge?
Yeah, I don't think we could kick them out if we tried.
Yeah. Well, and that's one thing I think is so great about it, because a lot of programs, like, you do your time, you're done, go move on, go figure out whatever you haven't figured out yet. In your world, that's probably, I would imagine, in recovery, it has probably been pretty broken apart and is not in a good place. So that's a really cool part of that, to be able to maintain that community, to not just be like, okay, you're done, moving on to the next people.
Yeah, like I mentioned, we've got visitors coming back all the way from Florida for their graduations and things like that. Like they made lifelong friends here. Like
That's
it
awesome.
was really cool.
And so do you guys have a private facility where you do it? Is it something you rent out, something the public can see? How does that all work?
Yeah, last year it was a hybrid. We had to use a friend of ours indoor to get us started, but we were able to put some things together at our place. So it is very private. When we did community functions, though, yeah, we rented like our public 4-H fairgrounds. And our participants were able to bring their Mustangs there. That way their families, their friends, and everybody could come out and see what they were doing in a public area. And that was one of their fundraising events as well. So
yeah, so both. We rent a facility for the expo right now, and then we rent, like he was saying, some of the other local arenas when we want to have, even just some little local get-togethers. And then right now it's just at our place where the people come out, and we're kind of just transforming a little, I don't know, turn of the century stone barn into like a little hangout center with a bathroom and a little place where they can hang out. And then also, I don't know if you want to talk about like if we're going to do something this summer, but possibly hoping to. So we did a lot of.
This is probably news to me.
I know. Well, we had clinics last year, right? So we did like our expo. We were working with the participants in the Mustangs, and then we had clinics. And what we would do is we had sponsors help us pay for the participants and their Mustangs to be in the clinics. Yep. And so we're going to do that again, but then also we haven't done it yet, but we would really like to plan and host a little regional competition for Mustang.
You've talked about it at least before. Now it's official. Just kidding.
I haven't gotten my to-do list yet.
Yeah. So for people and their Mustangs, I mean, we would open it up to anybody in this region that wants to come, but kind of just hosting it for our participants as well, so that they get a little experience of having a mini competition. And that way, if they're doing really well, like we had a horse this last year that honestly, if it wouldn't have been our first year and we would have been prepared, I think we could have gotten him ready for something like the Mustang Challenge Finals in Las Vegas in July.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's kind of, we have talked about that because we've reached out to like Mustang Champions and Mustang Heritage Foundation, and we're really looking for some more just support for us as we support our participants. But yeah, the ideas are out there. Mustang Champions, Matt Manroe, he's been really good to talk to, and he's hoping that we can transform this into like a qualifier for some of their bigger shows.
Oh, that would be cool.
Yeah. Which would be, I mean, how fabulous would that be to have somebody that's never worked horses before, even just be able to attend would be life-changing.
Yeah, that would really be cool to join that up in one way or another.
Yeah, and then there's this other thing that we haven't done yet, but that might actually happen this year as well, is our local 4-H program and our state 4-H actually has this like yearling adoption for Mustangs. So they have 4-H kids adopt a yearling Mustang, and then they bring it, they train it all year, and then they bring it to our state 4-H horse show, our state fair, and then they do like an obstacle course with the yearling, and then they actually auction them off. And we've got some 4-H kids that are interested in doing that, so that's just like another thing on the side,
including some of our last year's participants' kids.
Yeah.
So this is like, it's already become a generational, like, just life right turn.
Yeah. Did you guys anticipate that when you started it all?
No. We were just like, this is going to be a challenge. This is going to be great. We're going to learn a lot. But I mean, just to see the fruit of it as you go into it that way, yeah, it's really like emotional to think about, like when their kids started showing up and doing chores while their parents are working horses, and then you see them glued to that round pen, and then you see the parents get more excited about my kids looking at me like they've never looked at me, right?
Yeah.
They've never seen me run a tractor, they've never seen me do paperwork, but wow, look at the way my kids, and their kids are carrying around ropes. Like it was
Yeah.
pretty magic.
I have chills just listening to you guys talk about that, because I can just imagine what a drastic change that has got to be for kids coming from a home where there was a parent that was struggling with substance abuse.
One of our testimonies, one of our participants, he's never had his daughter in his life until this challenge. It was through the challenge he opened up to the guardians of his daughter, that they said, yeah, we're willing to let her come over for a couple hours and see what you're doing. And now he's got her the majority of the time, and they're talking about him as soon as he's done. I think in March he's going to be getting full custody back of her. And she's how old?
She's
Wow. So truly life changing, not just for the participants.
Yeah, and I actually talked him into being in a parade with us,
Yeah.
riding not one of the Mustangs. They weren't quite ready for that yet, but riding one of our domesticated horses in a parade. And you have to think, like, some of our participants, it was like, yes, this is a huge life change, but for him in particular, he had been incarcerated.
Mm-hmm.
And so he was afraid of people.
For more than half of his adult life, he's been in prison, and
Wow.
he's mid-40s now.
Yeah, and so,
Wow.
and somehow I talked him into riding a horse in a parade.
Yeah. Let's go to the parade then.
He said he didn't know whether to, like the bicycle cops are going up and down the parade route. He said, I didn't know whether to wait or rope them. Yeah, it was really fun.
That is really cool. Just that community. And I think, especially for someone like that coming out of prison, who it sounds like went in pretty young and probably really had difficulty figuring out how to function in this life that's suddenly way different than the years before that. When you guys look at candidates, is there specific things you're looking for that you really think like this will really benefit this individual? Or you said you kind of steer clear of people who've already had horse experience. What are some other things you kind of look for or have found?
I think we'd be more equipped this year to navigate some of that as we've got a little bit more experience.
Yeah.
But we were trying to just get the crossfiring out of the equation last year with somebody trying to say, hey, let's do this, let's do that. We really wanted to lean on Wes Taylor's stuff and his support because he's got the experience we wanted.
Yeah.
This year, I think we could take some horse experience. Really, we're looking for just their commitment to themselves, their drive to change, to try new things, where they're at. There's a lot of people that are waiting for something like this to change their life, and that gets a little scary. Because what if it lets them down? What if they get it and it's just not enough? So it's hard to say, and that's why we rely on our whole board to kind of screen applications. We'll probably have to fine tune that some more in the future. At this point, we're just looking for people that are motivated. We're going to stick with the team thing because the time commitment's huge. Having to be out there, regularly, being able to split that between two people. Yeah. It's a little bit easier on them. So they got to be willing to work on a team, where we did have people last year that told us they didn't want to. They wanted to do it on their own. They wanted to take on this challenge, which is like, it sounds good, but it's also might be more than you think. So
yeah.
And it's, you never know with this population as well. We did phone calls with them. I think that was really important, just really talking to them. This year, we'll probably do a phone call and an in-person interview, because it just kind of comes with the territory. We had a participant relapse, and then they dropped out of the challenge because, they kind of went back to that. And that's just something that goes with it. So that's why we came up with the idea of the teams, because if something happened, we've still got somebody dedicated to that horse.
Yeah. And so you guys both work full time still, in addition to starting a horse expo and a recovery program. What kind of creates that drive within you guys to do all this in, the little free time it sounds like you probably have?
I would say community. Like really just, we're in a beautiful area. It's really easy to find like-minded people that are into the same things. And we've got 5 kids. So on top of everything,
Add that.
5 children that are growing up here, and they get to see like healthy people doing healthy things and
Yeah.
learning from each other and then reaching out, right? It's not just Southeast Idaho. We're talking to people in Utah and Texas and Florida and seeing how nice it is just to make friends and become stronger together. I don't know why we wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
What's the alternative? Finding just, one little group, an echo chamber, sitting comfortable.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like that's why you guys do it. It's because of the way that you face life, wanting to reach out and help people and build your community, which it's definitely doing.
Yeah, and like I'm sorry, we probably undervalued this in the conversation, but the Mustangs is just another one. It's like how does it
Yeah.
the facts, right? That there's so many horses and nowhere for them to go. This is just a way to bring that in too and say, hey, look, if we all work together, we might be able to help more than if just me and Katie decided, hey, let's adopt a few Mustangs a year. It's
Yeah.
like, no, what if we bring all of our professional horsemen and say, hey, can you help us with this Mustang project? That some, they're out there in the high dollar shows and high dollar horses, but they were more than willing to get down with us in the backyard. And it's like, this helps. This helps. This brings awareness. This brings notoriety. Like, I mean, this is really cool. So
Yeah, it's just a piece of the American West. The Mustang is still here, and it's a way to also help people that are kind of down they're down also, like the Mustang, right? It's kind of like, I see them as similar to these
Yeah.
participants that we have.
Yeah. Labeled, disregarded,
There's a stigma.
cast off from, I mean, people who
now,
don't know, Mustangs are like not always welcome in all places of the horse world. Very similar to, if you find out someone had an addiction or was in prison, very similar. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. And so I think they can kind of see themselves, within that horse, and even the having to corral them up and everything, right? Like that's in, like, almost like these people that have been imprisoned for their drug use in some kind of ways. So I think, I mean, my hope is that we can replicate this model and actually, that would be, I guess,
expand.
yeah, I think that would be something that I would
Yeah.
love to see happen, is this being replicated in,
Everywhere.
helping, yeah,
Yeah.
helping the substance use issue, and then helping the horses that are, being corralled up in the overpopulation with the Mustangs.
Yeah. That's something I've also really felt is like we have all these horses sitting around and holding that are just existing, and all these people who are kind of tormented in the world we live in. And I think what you guys did, pairing those two up, I think you mentioned just some of the ways that it can be really incredible if people are willing to make that effort, putting a little bit of work in. It's like the Mustangs just waiting there ready to, to be a part of our world, really.
Yeah, and our local recovery community has got to be one of the most dedicated, sincere, empathetic communities there is. So when they hear about the Mustangs, like I mean, they're all willing to do whatever they can. Then
Mm-hmm.
it's just recognizing, okay, what can we do? Where in other aspects, like the horse community, there's certain sects of that I'd say that kind of like they're not interested,
Yeah.
right? Like I don't know how many times we've heard little under the breath remarks about like, oh, just shoot them, right? The only good
Yeah.
Mustang's a dead Mustang, and it's like, yeah, the recovery community didn't mean it like that. They said,
Yeah.
wow, are you kidding? A horse? Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Did you guys, that is so interesting that
Mhm.
that it's kind of the horse community that sometimes the barrier there. Did you guys get any resistance when you're like, hey, let's put these people in with a untouched, untrained Mustang
Well,
and
I
see
wouldn't
what
say
happens?
resistance. We had some. I mean, we've got really good friends and really good partners, and to give them their credit, some of them were like, "You guys are crazy."
Yeah. Just so you know.
The brakes. But then as they saw, like, yeah, we get it, but we got to try it because then I mean, we don't know what we're doing until we work this out. They immediately jumped in behind us and said, okay, how can we help? Right? They said, okay, here's what I can give you. Here's when I can be there. And they were more than happy. Like when we said, hey, we'll host you a clinic, and they say, cool. So give me like 2 days with the public, but then I want 1 day with just your participants, and I'll give you that. So yeah, there were people that said, like, this isn't a thing. Like, you can't do that. But then when we said we're gonna do it, they said, okay, let me help.
Yeah.
It was awesome.
I mean, that's a good friend right there. If you're going to do it,
Yeah,
we'll
if
be
you're
there
gonna
with
do it,
you.
like let's all jump in this together and let's do it
Yeah.
as safe as possible because nothing about it's safe.
Yeah.
Yeah. the whole thing was kind of nuts. But you did have like one or the other. Like people were like, oh yeah, that didn't want anything to do with it. But then we did have a lot of trainers and clinicians that were
just
willing
ready to go in.
Yeah, even if they hadn't had a lot of experience with Mustangs, like Cliff, like that was like the time of his life.
Oh, yeah.
He's like posting pictures of him working with that Mustang, like, and thought that was the greatest.
To quote Cliff, like I remember, I'll never forget it because it just like sticks in my head. He stopped and it's like sun's going down and everything else. We got a nice wood round pin and he just stops. He's like, hold on, guys, like who's a participant here? Because like some of our neighbors, like all of our kids have all their friends showing up and working horses with us all the time. So our backyard's just full of people wrapped around.
Our partners,
and our participants are there, and he's like, who's the participant, like who's in your guys' program? And we're like, well, I mean, confidentiality, we're not. And one of them says like, I am, and he's like, you know what, I have been introduced to so many programs like this, but this is like, you guys are talking smack to each other and you're supporting each other and you're joking with each other. It's like, I couldn't tell who was the participants and who are your friends, James. Like, this is one of the coolest things I've ever seen. And he had to like step out because he was getting emotional because he could just see the power in the community right there, which included people that had never even known, like, hey, you can gather around. This is like, this stuff's going on in a lot of people's backyards, in a lot of arenas. Like, this stuff's going on. People are just sitting in the dirt and having a good time and really trying to connect with horses. So yeah, that moment for me when I was like, wow, like we didn't have to do anything. We just had to invite them.
Yeah.
And it was powerful. And when Cliff was able to recognize that too, like, this is really cool.
And I think a lot of times in the mental health field, we spend so much time trying to solve problems and figure out how to do it. And it's like, you can put someone with a horse, not all the time, but sometimes just put them with the horse and it's like, it just unfolds like it's supposed to. It has, magic almost. It's not magic. There's ways to explain it, but it can also be really hard to explain.
Yes.
Yeah. And even, Miraculous, our female participant, like she said something like we were like, did you ever, I mean, her horse was coming along really well. He was, by the time we sold him, like one of the kids was riding around with a halter bareback. Like he was,
wow.
She did an incredible job. And
really
I think at the beginning she said she had never even petted a horse or something. Never even petted a horse. And somehow took this wild, untamed horse.
Who came to us as a 7-year-old stud.
Wow. Yeah. Do you think that's a benefit? People that kind of go in having no previous experience or ideas about horses?
I believe so. I think it's a little bit easier for people without experience to be open-minded. We're just like we were talking about different areas of the horse world. Some people think like every horse has got to do this. Some people think every horse has got to do that. Coming in and just saying, hey, let's not put an expectation on the horse, but let's just try to speak their language, right? Let's just try to communicate with them wherever they're at and see what happens. And the relationships develop.
Yeah.
But we don't care if that horse goes on to rope or run barrels. It's like, let's just see if we can talk to him, right? Let's see if we can trust him with our kid on his back. Like, that was so. That's where I'd say the benefit comes in. People that haven't worked with horses are a little bit more open to that. They're just like, am I doing good? And you're like, that looked great. I don't know. Or somebody that might think like, oh, I got to prove myself because I told them to go to rodeo or I used to ride horses. It's like,
or you become very anxious about, which role do I need to meet? It has to do this, in this order.
Yeah. So I would love to see, I think there'd be benefit for those individuals as well to kind of reset.
Yeah.
But where we're working collectively with a group, it's a lot. It's a lot of work trying to do therapy and horsemanship at the same time.
Yeah. Have you guys seen some of those skills that they need to develop to effectively work with a Mustang translate into their life with people?
Yes. I think we've probably already given a couple of examples of this. Like the gentleman that's reuniting with his daughter, like the communication. We have 5 kids, so I'll speak for our experience. Like a 9-year-old doesn't know how to communicate.
Yeah. So, I have 6, so I'm there with you.
Yeah. So being patient enough to understand, to just wait, and you don't have to have an answer for everything. And one of the worst things you can do is to kind of lose your cool. Like if you're getting frustrated, that just means you've ran out of communication tools. I think I've seen that with him especially. He's learned like it's not worth getting frustrated about. Just think, okay, why is it frustrating? and then say, okay, do I have a tool to respond to that? Not the actual communication.
Yeah. So what he's talking about is emotional regulation, right?
Yeah.
And I think that that's something that we were able to emotional regulation. And then I think it even goes further than that. I think it goes as far as like relationships and how as partners we dealt with problems, stressors, financial strains, right? We jumped in this, we're like, I don't know, we're feeding them our hay.
We're just gonna go get a bunch of horses.
Yeah. And so and then also our partners, we modeled that, like how to deal with problems, emotions, when you got hurt, right? How do we deal with that? And so I think that emotional regulation, they're learning that. We talked about developing those work skills and just the outlook on life. I think both of the participants had mentioned that it significantly reduced like anxiety, depression, that kind of thing, just because they had like purpose and a reason to, in addition with all of the other things, but it gave them like that thing to look forward to.
Yeah.
And, something to do where they could go out and with their children, right? Like they could bring their child with
a healthy activity with your children. Yeah. Which I would say is kind of hard to find a lot in the day, just talking about emotional regulation. It's like we have a lot of things in our world today that we can emotionally check out with, but not so many things that kind of help us practice to manage and control and master our emotions.
Yeah. And that was another cool confluence of the horse world and the therapy world, having Sherry Scar down, and she worked on sorry. She did like a lot of like breathing techniques and stuff with them, stuff that in their programs they tried to learn through therapy, but it was like, I don't like sitting there closing my eyes breathing. But then in the round pen, when they saw it actually have effect on the relationship, like, look, if you don't calm down, like you and this horse aren't going to be able, and then they'd try it, and then all of a sudden they're like giggling and the horse is nibbling on their ear. It's like, to see the response, and back to like the amygdala, the vibes you're getting just by controlling your breathing, by distracting yourself a little bit, you open that door back up, and then to realize you could take that into your human relationships too.
Yeah.
Like if you just calm down, like you might be able to continue this relationship, or if you stay where you're at, like it's done.
Not going to be good. Yeah. And I think that's one thing that horses, well, and Mustangs in particular, are really good at, is because they are so responsive to your behavior, your actions, what you're doing. It's like if they think you're scared and fearful, they are probably going to feel that way also. And they're very responsive when they suddenly see that change in you, which it sounds like you've probably seen from what you just described.
Like you said earlier, it's like, it's magic. We could probably explain it, but it's easier just to call it magic.
Yeah.
And that's what the stuff, like they'd been introduced so many times. They'd say, I remember when they tried to teach me this, and they didn't apply until they applied it to a relationship. And that relationship was with their horse, like the breathing, the emotional regulation, calming down, the subtle cues, right? The bids for communication, the invite in, that it was all nonverbal. It's like, yeah, you can't say I don't know how to do that. It's just like it works. And once you do it, you realize, wow, I totally know how to do that. I see how it worked. It worked. And then it's very repeatable, taking that to other relationships.
Yeah. And I think that's significant because sometimes we can maybe try that in the human world. Like, okay, I'm going to go in and just be happy with my kids today, whatever. And then it's like something happens and you're like, that didn't work. Nobody's happy. I'm frustrated or whatever. But with the horses, you get that very instant feedback that kind of shows you, yeah, it does work. You might have to go a little bit longer in the human world. We're not as perceptive sometimes.
Well, and that's where the Mustang comes into play too. Like so not just did they work with the Mustangs, but we do have domestic horses on our farm.
Mm-hmm.
And they were able to work with some of them too and see the difference between, look, this is really easy to get through. Like we had our friend Darcy, right? She had a very nice, very well-bred colt. And she said, well, why don't you guys take her and let some of your guys get some practice on her? We said, perfect. And it was like within a day we're riding her, she's soft. It's like, wow. Like, and they're like, what the heck? It's like
so much faster than the Mustang.
We got to talk about like trauma, and like, look, they had to survive. Like they couldn't walk into a pen and just eat when they wanted. They had to like kick and fight and run and be on guard, where this horse raised in this way, like it's a totally different pattern of learning and communication. So they got to see that in the horses too, where it's hard to convince them that all humans aren't the same too. Like they get to like, oh, you can't trust anybody, and it's like maybe you're just hanging out with a lot of people you can't trust.
Yeah.
Right. So when they were able to see like, hey, they're coming from different backgrounds, develop that understanding and that kind of empathetic factor of, okay, now it makes more sense, right? Why they act like this, because that's the environment they came from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that does rub off on the Mustangs as well. I think one of the participants mentioned something to me about they feel like they learned so much just by being around us and Bob and Darcy, like just kind of how we related to each other, how we interacted,
how we drink coffee,
how we dealt with stressors, right? That was our first year putting on that expo, our first year with these Mustangs, and we encountered a lot of things that we had to deal with. And so they had mentioned how much they learned just by being there with us during that time. And I think that actually does play into like with the Mustangs as well, right? Like we were interacting with these people and the participants. We were there teaching them, and I almost think that the horses themselves can feel that like everyone there is trying to help this person, and I just wonder if they have to feel that, right? They have to feel like, hey, these people are trying to help each other, and slowly they learn to trust us because they're like, well, they're trying to help me too.
Yeah, I'm sure that they can feel the intention behind it. What are some of the challenges and struggles you guys, did you ever doubt this idea? How has that been?
Did we ever doubt? For the first 15 minutes of every day.
Yeah.
It was like, oh, can we do this? Can we go another day? Maybe that was only true for the first 3/4 of it, because by the end we started to feel really good. When, like I said, we hit that transition where it became not a challenge against one another, but it's like, hey, can we all pool together and help all three of the horses? Then it got to be like, hey, I feel better because now we're not, there's not as much pressure. Like this is a team effort. Like we can't fail this at this point. There's no way we can fail at this point. Let's just see. That's when it got easier. I broke a rib, I broke a finger. That was kind of rough.
Yeah.
It's
good reality check. It's not all rainbows and butterflies, right? There's struggle there.
Yeah.
Which is part of what makes it worthwhile, I think.
To me, it's, as a trainer, maybe I shouldn't say this, but it's like I've broken bones before training, right? There are safe ways to do things, but you're dealing with a horse. So it wasn't like, oh man, we got to stop. But I think for our participants, they're like, wait, hold on.
Like, that's when they...
It's like a little reality check. Like,
yeah. So there was some hesitation on their side at that point. Like it was kind of like, okay, come back in and let's learn from that.
Which another really good life lesson, right? Is things don't always go the way that they're meant to, but you step back in, you can learn from it.
Yeah, we had to unsaddle that horse with a broken rib. So they got to see like, hey, this is what you do. I mean, it all worked out, but I would say, some doubts came up. I think every once in a while we kept anticipating that the hay, the feed, and everything was going to become an issue trying to do this, but there was enough support there. I really believe there's enough support.
Yeah. We stressed, but then like somebody was like, "Oh yeah, we'll donate some hay," and I'm like, "Okay."
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. That's incredible.
That I think we hesitated, but it never actually became a hurdle for us, which we were happy about. I mean, just blessed by that.
Yeah.
Trying to think of other times when we would have questioned it.
It was just a lot of work, right? Like a lot.
Yeah, it was. Juggling that in, where this year we kind of set ourselves up quite a bit better for that part, that aspect of it. And really a relief that a lot of our support from last year has already said this year, like, hey, are we doing that again? Because I'm ready. Like that makes it feel a lot better going into this year.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is this ever something you guys would try and transition into like full time or is it a side passion?
Well, I think the idea would be, I'd like to see somebody else run with it, right? Like if our participants, if our children even.
Somebody manage it,
Yeah, like I'm going to be involved for as long as it's around for sure. And I'll go as many hours as I can with it. But I don't think we've ever considered it becoming like, this is what we do. Because it's really not about us. It's like, hey guys, here's an idea. This is really cool. Let's connect. And I want to stay connected. But I wouldn't take ownership of it.
Yeah. Are there ways that participating in this, interacting with the Mustangs have changed your guys' lives other than being super busy now?
No, we're always super busy. It definitely humbling, right? Just seeing other people's lives impacted so much. There's a lot of that. The reality check of it, it's not for everyone, right? As much as we love it and everything else, there's just certain people that it's like it's not going to be their thing. Maybe they're not ready to take a step like that, or it's just something that's never got them excited. So yeah, I would say that was I mean, as much as I love the horses, it's kind of sometimes hard to imagine there's some people that are like, I don't care.
Yeah,
And they
that's
mean
my
it.
husband.
Yeah, yeah. So that was something I learned and I'm having to just deal with.
Mm-hmm.
I think
Find your
the
people.
Mustangs themselves offer quite a bit of, their own. They are their own teachers to these participants, right? I think
Mm-hmm.
the Mustangs taught them so much more than one of our quarter horses could have.
Mm-hmm.
Just because they were so wild and they had to work so hard to gain their trust and
Yeah.
continue. Something that I noticed was you had to do that every day. Like they had
Yeah,
to
the
earn their trust back.
consistency. Another good lesson for succeeding in life, right? You can't just do it for a day and hope it goes the way you want it to.
So yeah, your question of like what we learned, this was
Mhm.
fun. Like this was fun as we had to navigate the like you're crazy, you're crazy. Like, hey, you got to help me with this. I didn't sign up. Like that back and forth, but to come out on this end and see like the impact it had on our family. Our kids are excited for it again. And
Mhm.
some of our kids were starting to like even drift off from it. Like the
Yeah.
horses, they were just kind of moving on. They're just at those ages where now they're like, hey, you're doing that again this year, right? Hey, our youngest son, he kept one of the Mustangs and he's
Nice.
still working on that relationship. This is where I think I gained the most is because it really like I mean if you don't challenge your relationship, you don't get stronger. And I don't know if we could have signed up for a bigger challenge, but here we are, and it's
Yeah. Well, you guys have created something really beautiful. I can absolutely see how this could spread to other places. I think it's also really intriguing. You hear a lot of programs for veterans and PTSD and things like that. And really cool to see that kind of focused on, a different population, the recovery. All really important populations, well deserving of being able to come in contact with the Mustangs and all that they have done. I think what you guys are doing is so incredible for your family, it sounds like, definitely for your community, and especially for these individuals that really get this opportunity to just dig in and interact with the Mustang and get the lessons that they have to teach them, because I agree they're really great teachers. And thank you so much for coming on, for being here, for sharing your work. What are ways that people can support you or participate in the work you do if that's something that they want to do?
Yeah, for sure. We have a website. It's called mustangrecoverychallenge.com. So that is all about the Mustang Recovery Challenge. If they want to donate on there, they sure can. If they're in our area, which is near Idaho Falls, Idaho, they can apply. Or if they know somebody that is in the area that wants to apply, they can apply to be a participant. Or there's a contact form on there if they want to just help in some way, like come help us for a day, provide food, just show
Yeah.
up, whatever.
Send
Um,
hay.
yeah, yeah. And so we'll update that with as we get closer to planning our clinics
Yeah.
and possibly that competition. So mustangrecoverychallenge.com. And then our expo is coming up March 21st through the 23rd, 2020. It is in Ryrie, Idaho, or Rigby, Idaho. It's at an arena. That is called Teton Horse Experience. So they can just find that online as well. And I think both of them are on Facebook as well. So.
Mm-hmm. And how do you guys do the auction when the horses have gone through the program? How does that all work?
Yeah, it wasn't really an auction. We were gonna do an auction we were invited to the War Bonnet Rodeo and we were going to do an auction like there, but the timing and everything was just,
Yeah.
yeah, it was a lot. And so what we did is we actually just kind of met all of us together, the participants, us, and we just decided like, hey, here's what I think I would price this horse at. We kind of took some great pictures, we put them on Facebook, and we actually just sold them that way, just advertised them on
Okay.
Facebook.
so
Yeah.
if they wanted to be interested or involved in that, like following the Teton Horse Experience Facebook page,
Mhm.
we get a lot of updates and content on there from the Mustang Recovery Challenge. So they would see their progress, how they're doing. They can ask questions on there. They can support our participants on there.
Yep.
Cool.
And we have our own Facebook page now this year. Last year we ran down that page, but this year we have a Mustang Recovery Challenge Facebook page. But yeah, either or. It's the same. It's us and Bob and Darcy that run all of those. Mm-hmm. So yeah, they can find us on Facebook. Cool. They can just go on our website, and I think our phone numbers are on both of those websites. So
okay. And kind of check it out there if someone's interested in a Mustang that's had some great experience under their belt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And cool. And thank you for having us on. I'd say for all of your listeners, like, that helps support us too, because you're the one doing the outreach, right? You're the one bringing awareness to that. So thank you.
Yeah, and I'm happy to support that. As one of my main goals here is to just let people know about these programs that are using Mustangs and how powerful they are. And you guys definitely have one of those.
Thank you for joining us and learning about horses that heal and the humans who help them. We hope you'll continue with us on this journey. We'd love for you to subscribe on your favorite platform and follow The Touch of a Mustang on any of the major social media outlets. Please share with your friends, anyone who loves horses, or anyone who might be struggling and could benefit from this message. If you have felt the healing power of horses or help them in their divinely appointed mission, please reach out. We want to hear your story. As we say goodbye, always remember that the horse is always there to help you heal.